It's back. And apparently, it's back with a vengeance. The Ebola virus. There are countries that are locking down in Central Africa right now to prevent the spread. Some of you might remember way back in 2019 when this channel was sounding the alarm bell about an Ebola outbreak in Africa that was being treated very strangely by the medical authorities. Ebola is a very deadly disease, but you can only get it by coming into contact, direct contact, with bodily fluids of those who have had it. And the reason that was very prevalent in Africa is because they don't have the same type of sanitary standards in Central Africa that we have in North America. They very routinely handle those who have perished without any type of protective gear whatsoever. So that's why it would spread. And they don't, of course, have the medical infrastructure that we have as well to treat people. So by the time an outbreak was already occurring, they were way behind the curve on treating it. But this time, it was very, very different. Those who were handling just the caskets alone, where the body had been sealed, placed in a casket, those people on the outside were wearing masks, gloves, full protective gear to bury them. And they were actually shipping in dirt to put more dirt over the grave. And those who were treating those who were still alive were also using snow fencing and social distancing and masks to come within any distance of anybody. It was not like you would believe an Ebola treatment center would look. It was very, very different. I thought it was quite odd. But then, of course, everything changed with the whole 2020 sniffles thing. And there was some speculation. I wonder if there was a bit of a mixture. We'll never know. But this is 16 October 2022. African country orders partial lockdown. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, I hope I pronounced that right, Museveni, announced the restrictions after an Ebola outbreak killed 19. Uganda imposed lockdowns in 2 districts on Saturday to contain an Ebola outbreak, which has already claimed 19 lives. During a televised address, the president warned that with 58 confirmed cases, there's a risk that Ebola may spread beyond Uganda. Given the gravity of the problem and to prevent further spread and protect lives and livelihoods, government is taking extra measures that require action from all of us, the president said. Overnight curfew, closing of markets, pretty much what you would expect. Here's where things get a little bit misunderstood about Ebola. All these measures shall start with immediate effect and will last 21 days because the incubation period for Ebola is up to 21 days. Now, that would seem like it would make sense, but there's a problem with Ebola and other viruses like Zika and HIV. In certain cases, they can reside undetected in what they call immune-privileged areas of the body: the brain, the eyeball, spinal fluid, and, believe it or not, the testicles and semen. Meaning that you can get the virus, and if it doesn't kill you, it can clear your bloodstream. You can go be tested for it, and you can be fine, and you can be asymptomatic, and you can walk around for years with the virus dormant in these immune-privileged areas of your body. And scientists don't understand it yet, but sometimes the virus can then later on re-express itself. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you can get sick. And once again, this is confirmed fact. Ebola persistence in semen, eyes, and nervous system portends trouble. We're deeper in the woods with Ebola than we thought. First, a new study shows that some men still have semen that tests positive for fragments of Ebola virus 9 months after onset of symptoms, but it is not known how many of them are infectious. The CDC is conducting further tests of the sample to determine if the virus is alive and potentially infectious. This is not the scary part. While it's been known that Ebola is generally transmitted through direct contact with the blood or bodily fluids of a person with EVD, or from the body of a person who died from EVD, that's the acronym for Ebola, it was not previously known that Ebola could be transmitted months after the disease. Suspicions were aroused way back in March of 2015 when a Liberian woman contracted Ebola. Her only known exposure was through unprotected sex with a man who had survived Ebola months before. Because of this case, recommendations for abstinence amongst survivors were extended from 3 months to 6 months, or until semen twice tested negative for Ebola virus. As a result of these latest findings, survivors will need to be counseled on potential sexual transmission, use a condom, all this kind of stuff. Since no one knows, pay attention. Since no one knows how long the virus might persist because of these sanctuary sites. Immune privileged sites are the brain, the eyes. There's a story of Dr. Ian Crozier, a volunteer physician fighting Ebola, almost died from the infection he contracted with complications including respiratory and kidney failure, neurologic damage from encephalitis. He made a recovery. The fluid that was withdrawn from inside his eye was found to contain Ebola, but his tears did not. And then there was the nurse Pauline Cafferty. She did the same thing. She had blood tested in Africa that she was fine, and she came home, and because it was still in her eye, she still had it. This is the problem. And it's sparking a debate about international travel from Africa. And this is from 14 October 2022. That they don't think the checks are going to be good enough. The hemorrhagic virus was detected in mid-September, 30 deaths and 60 confirmed cases across Uganda. You see, Africa is only 1 or 2 connections from the United States. I couldn't find any direct flights to not even here, but also to either Mexico or South America. If this disease is going to travel around the world, it will go through airports, said Professor Devi Sridhar, chair of the Global Public Health at the University of Edinburgh. Screening incoming travelers is time and resource consuming and will not identify effectively infected cases. Now, here's the weird part about this. Some of you might remember seeing this video. I've never had this happen on YouTube. This is from 29 January 2020. I put up a video. This is right before the Super Bowl. You need to stop eating. This is the title of it. You need to stop eating this right now. Found in hidden reservoirs around the world. And my allegation was this, is if there was something deadly floating around like an airborne version of Ebola or whatever killed those people in Fiji, whatever it was going to likely work its way into low-paying, low-skill jobs. And because they were so desperate for help at the time. Remember, this was very, very early 2020. And I said, everybody, you need to stop partaking in McDonald's, Wendy's, KFC, Pizza Hut, because these people might be transmitting something they don't even know they have. And this would be the place, speculating, where if you were going to get it, and with the Super Bowl coming up and everybody at that time, now remember, this is way back January of 2020. This is going on almost 3 years ago. I said, you really should probably stay away from this. Because some of these, what they call ghost kitchens, they don't have the same standards because they don't allow the public to see where they're actually making the food. Prior to the idea of a ghost kitchen, it's basically where you have an abandoned strip mall, but a place like Pizza Hut goes in and rents up a little spot of it. They're not trying to have a storefront. They just want a place to run a delivery-only business. And in those ghost kitchens, they keep the one door that everybody goes in locked, and that's where the delivery drivers come and go from. And you just can't have a surprise inspection. And since nobody's coming in and picking anything up, nobody can even see anything. And this was my warning at that time, that there could be people that have gotten ill, they may be traveling, maybe through Europe, and then made their way back here, thought they were sick, maybe had it, maybe didn't, maybe had it and got better, and it was many, many, many months later, just like they confirmed. And once it got into the general population, it would be over, especially if it got confused with something else, hint, hint. And it does leave a retinal scar. And there's new articles about this. This is 11 February 2022. We may finally know where Ebola hides in the brain to emerge years later. Even if they did know where it was in the brain, there's nothing they could do about it. There's nothing they could do about it. They couldn't do brain surgery. And this is from 2018. They've been studying this. Testicles protect viruses from immune attack, foiling attempts to destroy the pathogens. This is another article. I'll give you these links. And you can read about this. And it's starting over. It's starting again. So, on another note, the Florida Maquis Alpha site. I haven't mentioned this in a long time. We've been talking about Patreon. Thank you, by the way, to everyone who's joined us over there. Brand new video yesterday. I have a backup channel here on YouTube. I've talked about it a long time ago. There's trail cam footage from out in the woods behind the house, raccoons and squirrels and birds and cats and all flying squirrels, all sorts of cool stuff. There's music over here. There's some stuff about Florida. There's a field guide on how to dress a deer. But recently just re-uploaded a very old video, and I think a lot of you guys would be very interested in it. It was something that was discovered by Jennifer Veterans for Truth off the coast of Florida. So I'm not sure how many of you were aware that there was a backup Florida Maquis site. It's basically like this channel, Florida Maquis, and then just add the words alpha and then SITE. Florida Maquis, MAQUIS, alpha site, SITE, Florida Maquis alpha site. It's my backup channel. Maybe go over here and give it a like, give it a share, subscribe, that type of thing. There's also a playlist. If you guys want to go back and kind of revisit everything we talked about back in 2019, there's an entire playlist at the main Florida Maquis page, Ebola Pandemic. Just go down and click over to playlists. There are 56 videos that, I guess this was January of 2020. They go back May, June. I tried to date them at the time when I was making them. Primarily May, June, I think some July here. That talks all about this. We even have them in April, up to April of 2020. So we went through the whole situation in Fiji. It's just very, very strange. Very odd. And it looks like an Antarctica video actually snuck its way in here too. So anyway, but the strange thing about this video was that when I posted it talking about the fast food joints, immediately, literally within a day, it ran up to 250,000 views, which for my channel is huge. It ran up to 250,000 views, and then YouTube demonetized it. And I had to, and when they demonetize a video, it's basically like shadow banning it. Meaning it was running through everybody's recommended all across the country, all across the globe, to get 250,000 views in about a day. And then weeks later, they remonetized it. But by then, the damage was done. It was very strange. I had never had a video that took off this fast. I never had 250,000 views in one day. It's still up now, and it's still monetized. But nobody, I think, has watched it in probably a year. But it portends a lot. It really does. For what was happening at that time, looking back now, something was very weird happening in Fiji, in Africa, and then, of course, we saw what happened around the world. Something else is up. I wonder if the 2020 sniffles was a dry run to see who would and see who wouldn't comply for something much bigger. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. Happy Sunday. We'll see you guys next time.